Hello, flower friends. Everybody probably thinks of wedding bouquets as white and blush and creamy and light, but today we're going dark. What do you think about a deep, dark, moody, mysterious wedding bouquet? My name's Ellen Frost. I'm creating a community of flower nerds online at Flowermore, my online community. Also, subscribe to my free weekly newsletter, Flower Nerd. There's a link in the notes if you want to check it out. Today we're going deep, dark, and moody for this wedding bouquet. And I have the best elements to include. I'm going to start with my foliage. So I wanted a dark foliage, and I've got two that I'm going to work with today. I've got ninebark, which is almost a black, and then smokebush, which is this deep, dark red. These two colors together are going to be the base for creating this kind of alternative dark bouquet. So I'm going to start by just cleaning all of my stems that I'm going to use so that I don't have any leaves on the stems where I'm going to be holding these stems. This is going to be a handheld bouquet, something somebody would carry walking down the aisle. So there's no vase or vessel. I'm going to just make it in my hand. And I'm going to use what I call a spiral technique. And the spiral technique is traditionally used for wedding bouquets. It can be tricky to learn, but I'm going to just walk you through the steps that I use to make a bouquet like this. So I start off with a heavy stem like my smokebush, and then take a second heavy stem and crisscross them over each other. So I'm creating an X format. And I want to keep this bouquet pretty loose, pretty naturally styled, because I have lots of different textures of elements. I don't want anything to feel too tight. So once I have my X, I'm going to do just a quarter turn. And this is more than just twisting my wrist. This is actually turning the entire bouquet in my hand. So my next element, I'm going to use some black pussy willow. Now I have been saving this black pussy willow since last year for the perfect design. And I'm going to crisscross this over just the same way and then give it a twist. The black pussy willow is so unique and so interesting. It has small black catkins, so I want to make sure that they don't get lost because they are one of the most interesting aspects of what we're going to be designing with. All right, so next I'm going to put in one of my focal flowers. Now this is a black calla lily. There is nothing deeper, nothing darker than these black calla lilies. And I only have a handful of them because not a lot of growers grow these. And I was so excited to be able to get these from one of my growers, Locust Point Flowers, who grows callas, and they're just beautiful. Next, I'm going to include some of this feather grass, which is coming in sort of a burgundy, beige tan, and this is going to act as my line flower. I don't have a lot of line flowers today, so this is going to act as my line flower. It's going to give some height in my bouquet. So I'm going to do the same crossover method, then give it a turn. So you can see I'm just holding it pretty loosely between my finger and my thumb. This is my forefinger and my thumb. What I don't want to do is give this bouquet a death grip, which is holding it tight with my fist like this, because as soon as I do that, everything straightens up, becomes more vertical. I want to keep it nice and loose. I want to keep my hand nice and loose. I'm not giving it any sort of death grip. All right, so I'm going to use a couple more elements. I have some burgundy dahlias. It is the time of the year for dahlias, so I'm giving it that same crisscross over and turn the bouquet. I do have a little bit of amaranth. These are small amaranth blooms. They're not very big. Sometimes amaranth can be huge. These are just some tiny blooms that I'm going to add into my bouquet. So here we are. You can see my shape is starting to, I can start to see where the shape is going. And as I'm going, if my stems get heavy or awkward, I can just be trimming them off as I go so that I have a little more manageable stem length. All right, so next I'm going to add, this is a really cool element. These are sunflowers with their petals off. These are great because sometimes sunflower petals can get damaged. They can look kind of ratty. If you take all of the petals off, you end up with this great black center that actually can act like a focal flower in your design. So the heads are pretty heavy. You can wire them, and I sometimes do, but I can also just prop them up in my bouquet so that my smokebush, you can see, is used as a prop to keep that head nice and straight. So I'm going to give it a turn. Next, I'm going to add some of this dark scabiosa. I'm actually going to use a couple of these at a time. So rather than putting them in one at a time, which can look a little dotted in my arrangement, I'm going to cluster them in a little cluster of 3 and add them in as if they were one stem. So when you see them in the bouquet, they're sort of acting like a little bouquet, a little mini bouquet inside my bouquet. Now I'm going to go back and start again with my foliage. I'm going to go with my 9-bark this time first. I only have, the smokebush is pretty big, so I want to use it sparingly. I have 3 pieces, and I think that should be plenty to use. So I'm going to include my 9-bark. I'm going to put my callas, and I'm doing my same crossover with my turn, keeping my hand nice and loose. I'm going to add some of my feather foliage, and I'm going to do the same thing I did with my scabiosa. I'm going to cluster these a little bit. Turn. Got my dahlias. So you can see I'm just crisscrossing over, and my shape is starting to look pretty good. The next element I'm going to include is one of the most unique elements I use in design. This is called Jewels of Opar. And this is a filler that we get locally that you will not find at a wholesaler. This is one of the unique benefits of using locally sourced flowers, is that you get to use the coolest stuff. So Jewels of Opar, it has these cool little red and burgundy and almost black little bubbles on them. And I'm going to include them as a little bit of whimsy. I'm going to pop those out of my design so that you can really see them. They add a lot of interest. They're so much fun. Now I'm starting to think about where the front of the bouquet is, because anybody walking down an aisle with a bouquet is going to be holding it in front of them. And while you want to make sure your bouquet looks nice on all sides, you do really want to think about how is this bouquet going to be photographed and how are people going to be looking at it. So I'm starting to think about the front of the bouquet and what that looks like. That's also going to impact where I'm going to add some of this hanging amaranth. So I'm starting to think about the front of the bouquet and what that looks like. Now I want to include my lotus pods. They have this great dark, really interesting look to them. And I'm just going to weave those in. To finish off my bouquet, I'm going to use some floral tape. This is not sticky to the touch. It feels just like paper, but it has a sticky resin inside of it. So when you pull it tight, that's when the resin activates, and that's what's going to keep the tape together. It sticks to itself. So I'm going to start right where my hand is, what I would call the top of my grip. And I'm going to hold it with my finger, with my forefinger here. And then I'm just going to wrap it around once to give it a little start. And once it's on there, I can spin my bouquet to wrap it up. Then the last step is to finish it with some ribbon. And what is better for a deep, dark, moody bouquet than some black velvet ribbon? So I'm going to wrap my bouquet just the same way I did with the tape. I'm going to use my ribbon in the same way. I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to use my finger, make sure nothing's caught in there. Use my finger up at the top to hold it, and then I'm just going to spin. Using my thumb to smooth it out as I spin it. I'm going to use a ribbon scissors. Don't try to use your clippers to cut ribbon. Always use a ribbon scissors. And then I'm just going to fold the end in on itself. And then instead of more traditional pearl head pins, I'm going to use some black pins to pin my ribbon in. And then I'm going to trim my stems just to about an inch below or an inch and a half below the ribbon. I don't like to have long stems for people to carry because when somebody's carrying a bouquet, you want them to hold it so that their bouquet is tipped out in front of them and all the flowers are able to be seen. You don't want them to have to hold it upright so that all of the stems are being shown. And the only way to do that is to cut these stems nice and short so they can really tip the bouquet towards the photographer or towards those people that are seeing the bouquet. I always try to have a nice flat bottom of my bouquet. I always try to get it to stand up by itself. So there we have a deep, dark, moody bouquet for somebody daring enough to carry it at their wedding. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and be sure to subscribe to my free flower newsletter, Flower Nerd. The link is in the profile.